2 Madras Road, Cambridge, Madras. Sorry, Mairead O'Sullivan is going to introduce this. Carry on, Mairead.
Please note there are also items on the amendment sheet for this one. An additional representation was received from the neighbour at number 4 Madras Road and from Councillor Baigent. These have been recorded on the amendment sheet. Also, the depth of the first floor extension was incorrectly referenced as being an additional 1.9 metres when it is in fact 1.1 metres.
Yeah.
I will point that out as I go through the slides. So the site lies on the northeastern side of Madras Road near the junction with Mill Road, and the applicant seeks full planning permission for the erection of a ground floor and first floor rear extension and a loft extension incorporating rear dormers. The application has been amended since submission. Partially, the amendment was to address concerns in relation to the impact on the neighbour at number 4. So the neighbour at number 4 has windows in the rear of the property. There is a dining room window on this wall here and 2 kitchen windows on this wall facing the site. And this proposal was what was originally submitted with this small courtyard and running hard on the boundary. And I will pull up the elevations next showing the flat roof which was originally proposed. The application has been amended to have this larger courtyard area here to allow some breathing room adjacent to these windows, and has been pulled off the boundary here. The height has also been lowered here to 2 metres adjacent to that boundary, with a roof that gently slopes up away from the boundary. As you can see, originally it was to be hard on the boundary and flat roofed. The rear roof extension has also been amended to address comments from the Conservation Officer. Originally this would have been full width, and even though it was split into 2 separate elements, they weren't well recessed and would span the whole roof. The revised proposal includes this decent sized link here and is set up from the eaves and from both sides. And the Conservation Officer is happy with the revised dormer proposal. The neighbour at number 4 remains concerned about the extension to the first floor. So existing, there is this outrigger at first floor to the rear, and the proposal adds 1.1 metres on into the length here. So this retains a cap slide roof as is existing, keeping the height low, and is also set off the boundary here, and as a result we didn't consider that this element would be significantly harmful. We have recommended a condition requiring the flank wall to be painted white to reflect light into this property, given that it's quite tight around here. So just to give a bit of context, this is from the site looking into the neighbour at number 4. This is the dining room window here, and there are 2 kitchen windows in this area here. So the proposal now allows for a decent sized courtyard here, meaning there's no building directly adjacent to these windows, and that the building here will be will have a roof that will slope away gradually. The first floor extension will be over this kind of existing ground floor protrusion. It will bring this bit level. The second one, photograph here is taken from the dining room window. This line here with some tread on it shows the original proposed extension line. This will now be set back further, and the height of the eaves on this boundary is 2 metres and will slope away gradually, which would significantly reduce this impact. And so to conclude, my recommendation is for approval subject to conditions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dennis O'Man.
Thank you. Well, it seems to me that this is, thank you very much, this is a classic instance of the way national planning law is just not useful and helpful to Cambridge conditions, because for the last 20 years there have been 6 students in there, and none of them to my knowledge have had cars, and indeed I don't think the authorities allow them, and now suddenly we know that the developer wants to attract professional people, so-called professional people. And yet that's not a change of use. That's ridiculous. Okay, and the other thing is that round the back is the only entrance into the glass doors. Again, that's something apparently planning law has nothing to do with. We won't waste any more time on things which clearly are not going to sway you. There are three main issues, and of course Myra has referred to the main one, which is the first floor extension. Now she argues that won't make much difference. I disagree absolutely on that. That piece of wall there, it's difficult to visualise for you, but there's a door going out into the garden which is beyond the kitchen window, which is right opposite where that extension would come. And that's, from there I can see sky, but I won't see sky anymore if that extension is allowed. It's only 3'7", I know, but it's actually a big difference. It will increase the sense of enclosure far more, I think, than Myra is saying. And she refers particularly to the issue of reflected light. Now, on a sunny day, it's fantastic. Yes, the sun reflects on the wind on that wall. But most days in Cambridge, I think you'd agree, are grey. And therefore, what sky I can see matters a great deal, and especially when you look from that door. And I sometimes have the door open and sit there in inclement weather, and I can see that sky, and I won't be able to see that sky anymore. That's the first relevant planning point. The second one is the circulation space down the side, given that it looks as though, in theory, planning law, you could have access from the back, sole access. That side alley will be really just a huge noise nuisance. At the moment, there are several bedsits in Mill Road where people bring their bikes along there, but they all have front doors, so they only come in that way if they have bikes. Now, all these people will have to come that way because there will be no other entrance, and I think it will affect the residents of Mill Road quite a lot. It comes past all those gardens. The third thing, or rather perhaps more minor thing, is that there's been six wheelie bins in effect, and I think with 6 double rooms, it might be even 3 wheelie bins, so that's 9 wheelie bins. I don't really see where they're going to be accommodated in the current plan. Well, that's my 3 minutes, more or less, so I think that concludes it. But I really do want to emphasise the noise nuisance down the side, because I think that could be very considerable.
Thank you very much, Mr. Let me invite members of the committee to speak.
Can I have
Oh, I'm so sorry. Councillor Baigent, I do forgive.
I may be small, but I'd like to thank the planning committee for staying behind to listen to me.
You no choice, mate.
I'll try and be as brief as I can, Chair. As members will be aware, much of Romsey consists of Victorian back-to-back houses in close proximity to each other. The consideration of the amount of space required for families at that time, when they were built, was given scant regard. So therefore, the consideration at that time was that people needed houses more than they did space. Whilst you are governed by planning law, unlike the officers, you have the right of discretion, and there can be a conflict between these two tasks. As a planning committee, I'm asking for you to balance issues such as the need for further accommodation against the potential cramming and overdevelopment that may occur in this Victorian sector of Cambridge, where in the past there's been little regard for space. So each of these developments, as planning committees pass them, what I would call the back garden developments, they have an impact on everybody else. They're not just an impact on the immediate neighbours, because it builds up a situation where sometimes 3/4 of the gardens along a whole road can be full of building, and then the remainder of that building is full of bike racks and bins. I'd like, if you would, to turn to the planner's copy of the plan. If you look at it, I don't know what page it is on your documents, but it's page 31 on the one I've got. If you look at the building to the left, the ground floor plan, number 4 is shown as ending opposite what is bedroom 2, when in fact it continues outwards to provide a kitchen. and that isn't actually shown on the plan. I'm not suggesting there's any duplicity here, it's just the way that the council produced its plans. So if you draw a little bit on the extra, you will see that there are or you will know now that there are windows, 3 windows and a door facing this development, facing what was in the past into a space. Now there will be a building and a courtyard. And the courtyard in itself is a difficulty because it potentially is the only sort of space in that development where people may meet and greet. Now I know it belongs to bedroom 2, but there's nothing to stop the occupier of bedroom 2 inviting the people over, and it will become a focus for potential smoking, drinking and joggers. I'd also like you to look at the plan. There is a fridge, a single fridge, a single freezer, a single sink and a single cooker shown. This is potentially, and in fact it is, a licensable large HMO. It has 6 bedrooms, which could in itself contain 12 people. Each bedroom is shown with a double bed. So one might anticipate that they will be occupied by pairs of people. In addition, those people could even bring children into this development. So we're talking about between 6 and 12 plus people occupying this small Victorian house. Those 12 people will have crockery, food, and their own local requirement for when they come downstairs to eat, because the only place they can cook is downstairs. So you could have a situation where 12 people are in this kitchen getting the meal ready. And I think you need to consider that, how much of an overcrowding that in turn might be. These 12 people, of course, all potentially have cars. Now, Madras Road is one of those narrow streets in Romsey which can contain something like 38 cars. But when it does, they actually are illegally parked because they're up on the pavement. So if you add to that mix another 12 cars, we have a real problem about parking. I'm going to talk about bins. 3 bins are shown. Now I know from being in a family that we produce quite a lot of rubbish in these days. So I think 3 bins are inadequate. We're probably talking about 9 or 12 bins that are required. So this takes up that quarter of the garden that was allowed for bikes and bins. If we cover 12 people with bike racks, then it'll be difficult to get into this rear area. Now, unusually, this premises is approached from the rear. So you have to go down an alley off of Madras Road, turn left along that alley and turn into the backyard, which then gives you access to the house. Now that is not actually a very satisfactory arrangement for people that are going to be living. It's going to be dark, it's going to make people vulnerable, it's going to be a potential area for criminal activity. It's not a good place. I'd also like to point out to you the emergency access door, which is on the right just outside the kitchen. 12 people potentially could be living on the wrong side of that access door if there was a fire in the kitchen and the kitchen door was left open. Now I know the kitchen door will be required to have a self-closer, but my experience of self-closures in areas like that will be that they're held open by a British standard wedge. And so I think there's an area of danger there. Now I'm going to return to my notes. The law has always made a clear distinction between whether something is a material consideration and the weight that is given to it in accepting or not that it is a relevant point. The former is a question of law, that is the material consideration, but the latter is a question of planning judgment, which is entirely a matter for a planning authority. Provided that the planning authority has regard to all material consideration, you are at liberty to give whatever weight the planning authority thinks fit. These are fine words. They are the words of Lord Justice Hoffman commenting on a particular area of subjectivity and the role of the planning committee in providing the decision. What is being spoken here and what I'm speaking about is the weighting of the material consideration that you give to some of the points as to why this permission shouldn't be given. Material matters in this case, I believe, are the cumulative impact of the development. It is covering 3/4 of the plot. The noise, the smell and the pollution potential that is likely to spread to the surrounding area, and the courtyard in particular may well have a particular consolidation of the noise. And another material view should be about what the consultees believe in. In particular, in this regard, members, I am asking to consider the considerable arguments that have been made about many similar applications within Romsey, which put into simple terms suggest that the residents of Romsey are very concerned about the overdevelopment in what is already a very crowded area. And they have come to this committee to represent their views. Councillors here have a scope to make a difference. The lack of support by councillors on this committee for views of the local population is creating unhappiness and difficulty within my ward, and I'm sure in other wards. This was always going to be a potential difficulty when planning was moved from area committees to a central planning application place.
Relevance the application.
Interrupt you to suggest that you should confine your remarks to this particular application. You're talking about more general questions, and I don't think that it's appropriate that you do that.
Well, I'm not agreeing with you, Chair. You're the Chair, but I think that the cumulative impact of these changes is important for members to consider. I'm going to suggest now that in the light of the overbearing nature of the proposed extensions means that this is an overdevelopment which covers 3/4 of the plot and goes up to 3 stories. I am also concerned about the impact of the unusual main entrance on surrounding properties. I am also concerned in the loss of privacy and the potential for noise, smell and pollution created by this confined courtyard. I'm asking you to reject this application.
Thank you, Councillor Baigent. Yes. Councillor Hart.
I'm sorry, is it the right time to ask questions? Sorry.
Yes,
Okay,
Councillor Hart.
right. I would like to ask the officer. Okay, my understanding of the plans is that the main entrance to the flats, to all 6 of them, no, not flats, no, all 6 bedrooms with bathrooms, will be through the patio doors at the back, so going through the sitting room and the kitchen, just my next question, that's a comment for clarification really. So the main entrance to the building, to all the units, to all the bedrooms with bathrooms, would be through the patio doors at the back, and the expected route would be to the right of the building, down past the emergency exit, around and round to the back. Okay, so my question is, on the plans it shows a small passageway on the left, which shows a kind of it shows where the access would have been previously on the left, leading to the courtyard. Okay, now concern was expressed in the previous application about people congregating there with the bedroom. Okay, the access to the bedroom opens up onto the courtyard. So I can't understand that configuration kind of seems a bit strange, where you've got two things happening. You've got people walking through the sitting room and the kitchen in order to get to where they sleep, and also you've got people who could potentially come down the side passageway and through into the area of the courtyard where there's a door opening out from the courtyard into the bedroom, and that seems an odd way of configuration. And also, bedroom on the ground floor, the bedroom at the front, bedroom 1, the only there's no bathroom at all. Well, there is further down the corridor next to the kitchen. Okay, so that's the only bathroom that they would be able to use. And also, if you go look at the next, on the second floor, bedroom 3 would then have to come down the stairs in order to use the kind of communal bathroom next to the kitchen. And I just sort of, I find this configuration of rooms a little bit kind of unusual. I just want to give you a comment.
I think you're saying awkward, aren't you?
And polite.
Sorry.
You're being very polite. Lucy Netzinger.
Thank you. I share all of Caroline's concerns about the design of this building. I think it's a truly awful design. However, that is not a planning consideration. But I do think it's something that maybe as a committee we can take into account. The thing that is a planning consideration is the relationship between this building and the adjoining house, and whether or not this is overdevelopment of the site, and whether or not it's going to cause overcrowding and overshadowing. And I think it will. And if it was a good design and a beautiful building to look at, I might potentially have been persuaded that that was tolerable. But given that it's a dreadful design, I think that the reason that the impact on the neighbouring building gives us sufficient grounds to turn it down. We have to do that.
Are there any other speakers? Then I think we'll proceed. Yes?
Well, there, Chair. Come on. So, Chair, I think you were right to challenge Councillor Baigent on his moving away from the subject matter. But also, what you didn't challenge was Councillor Baigent said that there was a lack of support by this committee for the local population. I'd like to say that I believe that not to be the case. And that, I think you have said that before, Councillor Baigent, and one other person, Councillor, did as well. And this committee, just by its very existence, is supporting the local population. That's the work we do. And I think for you to say that is not helpful at all. I and other councillors on this committee, I believe, always work very diligently to support the local population about the decisions we make. So moving on to the subject matter, I believe that Councillor Baigent has some good points to make about this particular application. And indeed, as other councillors have said, it's a terrible layout. And but that's an aside in the sense that it's not a planning issue. But in terms of amenity space, I think that is a planning issue. And there's very little amenity space in a number of flats in this development. It's just all on top of one another, and clearly, so bad, I don't even want to waste time describing it really. It's just not acceptable in terms of amenity space, and the sort of future lifestyle of the people that are living in that property just would not be acceptable, I believe.
Are there any other? Yes? Councillor Cyrus.
I may have misunderstood this, Chair, but you seem to be now discussing this in terms of as if it were a block of flats. But this isn't. And so the absence of the failure for there to be an ensuite bathroom for every room or what have you isn't relevant. And it's not communal bathrooms, it's bathrooms in a house. And be very careful we're not imagining a different application in front of us.
Yes.
Just kind of come in to clarify a few aspects, because both Mairead and I have been to the neighbour's property to look at this quite carefully, and following those site visits, these amendments have been made to the plans. Some of the councillors are right that the internal arrangement, particularly entrance from the front of Madras Road, is not ideal. That is not what is being sought planning permission for. That is effectively an internal alteration, and we have no control over that aspect. This is a householder application for an extension to the house, and that's how members should proceed to determine the application. It's not flats, and it's not sui generis, HMO, they would need planning permission, or for both of those uses. So those points of clarification. What I would say is that the Madras put up the plans and shown quite clearly where the amendments have been made in terms of loosening the space between the objectors' kind of courtyard area, which so what they're proposing here is effectively an equivalent cut-out space to what happens at 4 already. Really, to my mind, in terms of the impact on that neighbour, it comes down to that first floor element. As Mairead has explained, that is only 1.1 metres further deeper off the back of that existing outrigger than existing. It follows the plane down. It is to the north of that neighbour, and the south-facing wall of that outrigger will be painted white, which will continue to reflect light on sunny days back into the ground floor windows of that objector's property. So that's where officers are coming from in terms of the recommendation.
I refer to all the grey windows. Sorry. All the grey days we have, and all the sunny days. Sorry about that.
Just underline that this is a householder application. This is an application for the extension of one's property, if you like, and conjectures about what it might be translated into are neither here nor there. If there are any such translations, they would need to come to us for approval, and we could then judge them on their merits. So let's be clear about that, and all the questions about the internal design are matters for the person who has applied and who is wishing for more space, and to allocate that space according to their wishes. And I think we should be very careful about any suggestion that we're telling them they've got it wrong. So given all of that, I really do think we can be in a position to proceed to a vote. So that those in favour of the officer recommendation for approval, please indicate.
5, Chair.
Those against? No, I think it's 3. So it's 5-3, which is
Can't be more than 8.
a majority in favour of approval. Thank you all very much for indeed. We come now to item